Hey kids, do you like playing games where you help mice elude cats? Well, what if that was a puzzle game where you didn't directly control the mice? And what if these mice escape via rocket ships? Well, then you'd have ChuChu Rocket from Sega. So in ChuChu Rocket, you lay down directional arrows to help guide the mice and cats around the board. You want to guide the mice to the rockets to escape the cats, and you want to keep the cats away from the mice and the rocket ships. Now, depending on the mode, a cat eating a mouse is either a game over or a point deduction. But the strategy and the fun comes in figuring out where to lay your limited number of arrow tiles to keep your mice safe. Okay, this sounds like ChuChu Rocket's a pretty simple game, so why are we talking about it? It's not even tied to a famous IP. Well, ChuChu Rocket was the first Sega game to appear on a Nintendo system. Well, not exactly, but in the modern era post-Genesis, which may or may not be notable depending on how obsessed you were in the Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis wars of the early 90s. Here's a brief history lesson. Sega used to be a console manufacturer. They made console systems just like how Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft do today. Their most successful system was the Sega Genesis, known as the Mega Drive outside of North America. Now, the Genesis was a really strong competitor to the Super Nintendo, like really strong. Though, through a series of missteps on Sega's part and the rise of the Sony PlayStation, Sega ceased console development in early 2001 and set about making games for their former competitors. The first of these games was ChuChu Rocket for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, which was actually a GBA launch title. I remember firing up my GBA on launch day 2001 and seeing that Sega logo and really not believing it. So what is ChuChu Rocket? Well, there's a few main modes to ChuChu Rocket. There's Battle, Stage Challenge, and Puzzle Mode. Unfortunately, I can't record the Battle Mode off my Retron 5 because it doesn't support link cable. So take my word for it when I say Battle Mode is a multiplayer-focused mode where up to 4 players simultaneously guide the mice to their rockets. And they try to sabotage the other players by guiding their cats to their opponent's rockets. This is done in all real time where all 4 players are laying tiles simultaneously to route the mice and the cats. It's hard to be really strategic with the amount of things going on screen, but it is a lot of fun. The Stage Challenge mode is also in real time. There are 25 different puzzles with different timed goals like how quickly can you get 100 mice into rockets? There are also a few levels where the game inverts the premise and you want the cats to eat the mice, and the goal is to see how many mice can you eat in 30 seconds. And these levels are fast and frenetic, but there's only 25 of them, and the whole mode can be realistically beaten in about 30 minutes, though the goal is to beat your previous times. Now, Puzzle Mode. Puzzle Mode is where the main meat of the game is. Puzzle Mode is extremely slow-paced compared to the chaos of Battle and Stage Challenge, and mostly because it's not in real time. You lay down your arrow tiles, and then you press go, and then you watch helplessly as the mice and cats follow the paths you laid down to success or failure. It's pretty much like a Rube Goldberg machine, but, okay, so when I start a level, I often hit go just from the very beginning just to see where my mice are likely to get killed. ChuChu Rocket is actually a port of a game from Sega's last system, the Sega Dreamcast. The original Dreamcast ChuChu Rocket is also notable as the first console game to have online multiplayer, depending how you feel about the X-band modem or what was in Japan. Caveats. People could play each other in the battle modes. They could also share and download user-created levels with each other. The Game Boy Advance version is missing the online portion of the game, but it does have several hundred of the Dreamcast version's user-created levels preloaded onto the cartridge. 2,500 to be exact. So there's a ton of game to play here. I've been playing ChuChu Rocket off and on for 15 years, and I've barely made a dent here. ChuChu Rocket also allows you to replace the cats and the mice with whatever other characters you can imagine, and the game gives you 4 frames of animation to work with. So the first thing I did was get sprite sheets online to make my own Sonic the Hedgehog and Link sprites to replace the main characters in the game. It is weird that Sega didn't trot out a Sonic game as their first Nintendo game and instead went for a newish IP. But it works for the Game Boy Advance as a puzzle game, and it's a good showpiece of the system's ability to render dozens of characters at once. I love ChuChu Rocket. I always have, always will. Most puzzle games have either falling blocks or color matching or both, and so it's nice to see a game that breaks out of that mold. ChuChu Rocket was also re-released on Android and iOS a few years ago, so you might still be able to play it. As a game, it's a pretty easy to understand concept, but the puzzles are deep enough and the real-time mode's chaotic enough to provide a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. That was a game, and we'll see you again next time.